Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in a minute, but I just want to point out that there's my homemade chai in the back. You might have to ask for a cup from Java if they're so kind. But this is my famous and long-lasting recipe over the last 7 years of my life. So if you want chai, get some. Also get a pamphlet, a booklet. It has the poetry in it. And get a pen. Yeah. I printed 30, so we should use them all if we can. If we can. This is my intro music. Kidding.
21. My father.
There we go. Sweet. All right. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Halvorson, and this is a collaboration for my senior capstone, my English senior capstone, with Cab for a coffee house. So, yeah, I'm going to start with a poem, and then I'll explain what's happening. All right? So, this is called The Poet. Somewhere off the coast of Maine, we pull up to a beach. The sun presses into my back. My bare feet twinge at the touch of cold water, and the sea is calm. Zach sits on a rock facing the sea and takes it all in, absorbed in the ineffable, immersed in the vast. Anna walks along the shore, sand and rocks sticking to her feet, picking up shells and small sea creatures, reveling in the details. Both are lost in their moments, and I, the poet, collector, and recorder, observe from the margin, never fully surrendered to my own. So yeah, as I mentioned, this is my English senior capstone, and this is obviously my last year at Houghton. I have a double major in English and adolescent education, and I was told that my English capstone should sort of bring together the last 4 years for me. So that's what it's going to be. There's going to be a lot of different elements to this. This is going to be sort of a workshop on poetry, so you'll have an opportunity to do some thinking, reflecting, writing if you want to. And it'll be about, identity, as well as I'll be reading some of my own poems that I've written over the last few years. I'll read a few poems by some of my favorite poets and kind of analyze them a little bit, and then and I'll be singing a little music. So that's what you have in store. So this is different than other coffee houses. I would love your participation. You don't have to participate, but there'll be moments where I ask if anyone wants to share something or just like throw out an idea, and you're more than welcome to do that. I would really appreciate that, actually. So yeah, as you feel comfortable. So yeah, this workshop is namely going to be about identity poetry. So it makes sense to briefly discuss identity. It's a big topic. It's something that we spend a lot of time talking about, thinking about, discovering, because it has to do with all the labels that might apply to who you are. Throughout our lifetime, we'll identify with so many different things. It could be a place, an interest, a group of people, a belief, any number of things. So yeah, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is, if you have a handout in front of you, if you don't, there's more in the back, open up to the middle and then flip one page further, and it says, your turn. And if you have a pen, the first question on there is just list some identities that you have had over the years. So I, for example, it can be old identities that you don't like really hold on to anymore, or it could be ones that mean a lot to you right now. So something that came to mind for me was like spiritual or Christian, third culture kid, sort of like a wanderer, queer, adventurous, outdoorsy. These are all words that came to mind when I was reflecting. So I'm just going to give you like 1 minute. Just jot down some things, and that's how we'll do that. Maybe like 15 more seconds. All right, so out of curiosity, is anyone willing to just like throw out some words? Just spitball them out. What are some things we wrote down? Okay, musician, nice. Mother, awesome. What else? Pastor's kid? Bookworm, nice. One or two more? Athlete, nice, okay. Cool. All right, so yeah, there's a lot of different ways this could go. Now I want you to take just 30 seconds, maybe even less. Circle one identity that you wrote down that means a lot to you, something that currently you are like really resonating with, And then circle one thing that maybe used to mean a lot to you, but has sort of changed. And if you want, you can also circle one thing that maybe it's an identity that you don't really like. You kind of want to change it. Yeah, for example, I can sometimes be an anxious person, and I don't really like that I'm like a nail-biting kind of person. That'd be like an identity that I want to change. So, yeah. I'll give you about 20 seconds to circle one, and then we'll move on. All right, and if you're still thinking about that, that's fine. We're gonna move back to the beginning, and I'm gonna read two poems that have to do with a part of my own identity, which is that of kind of a like restless wanderer. I've moved for the majority of my life, and so I think you'll get a sense of that in these poems. The first one is untitled, written on the 24th of January, 2021. I smudge my boot against the gate as it closes behind me, marking me with red dirt. I am leaving again. It's what I do, and this red dirt will taunt me with thoughts of home deferred once more till the rain and snow of New York wash it clean. A pink and yellow sky marks the end of day, the end of this day. The city is going to bed, and it will wake again without me. I climb the stairs from the tarmac into the plain, that milky night air hugging me, thick with strains of dust and exhaust. And I wish I had a moment to breathe it in one last time, to really open my lungs to it. But I keep my mask on, take a quick glance back at the dark city, and board the plane, the line moving forward quickly. We have places to be, adventures to have. And the next one is just called a sonnet. I don't usually write in form, but this one sort of just happened, and so I wanted to share it with you. If when I die I find the saying true, rest in peace, a rest that lasts forever, then when I die my skin is turned all blue, I hope to God I reach that day exhausted, worn out from the bitter struggle to lay out under a blanket of stars, awake, utterly spent from wringing out the day, loving with my every ounce till lakes of sweat and tears and joy and pain remain, burnt out by beauty too magnificent, moments in my palm, each wonder again to my satchel underneath which I'm bent. Then I'll be set to take the final test, last bite of breath, in desperate need of rest. So with poetry, for me, and there's so many ways to write poetry, and poetry is this like huge idea and can really be anything. But for me, the way I like to write poetry is to really root the poetry in a moment and like start with something really like tangible. And you'll see a lot of my poetry I write in the present tense to really put myself there and put my reader in that moment and then bring them into that identity or the topic that I'm talking about. So in the first poem, I start off somewhere off the coast of Maine, we pull up to a beach. And in the second poem, I smudge my boot against the gate as it closes behind me, marking me with red dirt. And so that's the kind of idea behind this workshop that I want to really, like, if there's a takeaway about like one way to write poetry, it's that. I want you to think about moments that mean something to you, that are connected to these identities that you've written down, and start there. Whether or not you even write about it, start there when you think about it, because it's the moments that shape us. So yeah, we can go back to the little your turn section. And the next question, halfway down that first page, is what are 1 to 2 moments that come to mind when you think about any of the circled identities? So now just pick one of those identities that you wrote down and just reflect for a minute. Pick 1 or 2 instances you can think of where it really solidified for you or it really meant something for you. And I'll give you about 2 minutes on that. And if it's helpful to you to share with your neighbor, go ahead, you can do that as well. All right, start wrapping up whatever moments you're writing down. You don't have to write in depth about them, just the idea is like something you could write in depth about later. Okay. Is there anyone who wants to share? It could be like 1 or 2 sentences, 1 or 2 words about it even. Anybody? Yes. Did you raise your hand? Yeah. Okay. Nice. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's exactly the idea. That, thinking about like a specific moment you can start with. So thanks for sharing. Great. Now the next question, I'm only going to give you like about a minute for, and that is there a certain symbol or image, a motif that comes to mind when you think of this identity? So that could be like very commercial for like the pride flag, for example, for like queer. It could be very commercialized like that. It could even be cliche. I talk a lot about, in my poetry, I talk a lot about the open road kind of idea of, as like to like, that's the motif for me of like this wandering spirit. And sometimes it's a little cliche, but that's okay. I like to lean into cliches sometimes. Maybe it's something completely else. So think about that identity. Is there a symbol, an image, something that comes to your mind right away? I'll give you about a minute on that. Okay, this time I want you guys to share with someone next to you what you wrote down. Okay, do we have a brave person who is willing to just like yell out the thing? And also the identity if you're willing. Do you have a person? You want to just give me the thing? No. Tears. Okay. That's great. No, that's a good one. All right. So I'm going to read another poem. And this poem is, it's really interesting because I actually wrote it for Professor Gates's spoken word class. But one thing I've come to realize in life is like it's a revising process, right? We're constantly revising like how we see ourselves and how we present ourselves, and poetry's the same way. Recently, I've liked just writing poetry and leaving it because that's how I felt in that moment, and I'm just gonna leave it and not do anything with it. But I think there's also a beauty to revising things. And so this poem I wrote when I still used she, her pronouns. For those who know me, I now use they, them pronouns primarily and identify more as non-binary than a woman. But I wrote this as I'm just sort of exploring the idea of gender and gender constructs. And I revised it the other day to put it into this so that it could still make sense to who I am now, but also you can see elements of who I was when I wrote it then too. So this is a spoken word called She, Her, Revised. Yeah, that I'll share with you. And notice again here just how I like to start in a moment with my writing, like a pivotal moment. I shaved my head, or rather, I buzzed it, peeled away another layer of security, and now it's the first thing people see. At first, I felt exposed. Fresh air and eyes on my face, my neck, no covering to hide behind my insecurities, and oh, it's alarming what new ones I find that I didn't know existed. The illusion of long hair so foolproof I deceived myself into thinking I was confident. I found myself fighting thoughts in the back of my almost bare head about how to defend my femininity, how to prove it. I wasn't going for a boyish look, but when my mom saw it, that was the word she used, and my dad said he didn't like it. He missed my long hair, a woman's beauty. After insecurity came confusion. I found myself asking more and more just to be sure what it means to be beautiful, what it means to be woman. When my brother turned 16, my dad sat him down, told him how to be a man. He said, 1, stand up for the weak. 2, follow God. 3, don't be passive. But no one told me what it meant to be a woman, because there are women who serve and women who lead and women who do both, women who help those in need, both passive and assertive and everywhere in between, women who follow God, whatever that means. The only rules I got were to sit ladylike, to be modest, ladies first, but let the man take the lead. So when I shaved my head, I was terrified, but more than anything, I was freed. When I was a kid, they asked me if I was a tomboy or a girly girl, forced me to choose, to pick a side. But I was just a kid who liked to dress up as a princess and roll around in the mud, a kid just trying to be a human, and that's it, really. That's all. You see, I only know what it is to be human, a human with XX chromosomes and a little extra estrogen who can shave their head and wear glitter too. I'm wearing glitter today, everyone. Thank you to Mary Hannah for the glitter. So yeah, back on that Your Turn page is a question that asks, if you circled an identity that has changed over time, an identity that you no longer identify with, what was the turning point? You can think of a specific moment. For me, it was when I shaved my head. That's when I really started to think about gender and like what it means. So if there's an identity that you no longer really resonate with, what was the turning point or turning points? So I'll give you probably 2 minutes on that to think about it and write something down. right, I'll give you about 20 more seconds on that one. And if there's anyone who wants to share, I would love for you to share. It's maybe a little bit more personal question, so understandable. But maybe start by just if you want, share with the neighbor next to you what you wrote, if you feel comfortable. All right. Let's bring it back, and then I think this time, instead of having anyone share, I like that you guys shared together, so we'll keep it that way. Of course, it's sad for me because I don't get to hear, but that's okay. Yeah, thank you guys for participating so much and like really taking time to write. It's beautiful to see. So yeah. Okay, so I have a lot of art major friends. Like almost all of my friends are art majors, and I don't really know how that happened. But it's really got me thinking about poetry as like a fine art. Like poetry is like painting. And in this case, like really all I want you to do is play with the paint. Like just play with words. You don't have to think about like terms and like the tools. I'm gonna talk about some of the tools, and if it sounds interesting or you notice something in the next few poems that I read, like please write it down, think about it, and feel free to use it. But that's okay. When it gets time to actually writing maybe a poem, if you feel ready for that, really don't be stressed about some of the stuff that I'm going to say in this section, because I'm going to analyze some poems and talk about how these artists are using these different tools to create these beautiful paintings. Yeah. So now we're moving into the section of poetry that's not my own. And we're going to start with a song. So this song, I picked it because poetry is a big concept. Songs are poetry. I deeply believe that. This is called Hot and Heavy by Lucy Dacus, who is my favorite artist. Yeah, and notice in it, you can follow along with the words. You can sing along if you want. Notice the images and the moments that she's putting us in. Whoa. Okay, here we go. Being back here makes me hot in the face. Hot blood in my pulsating veins. Heavy memories weighing on my brain. Hot and heavy in the basement of your parents' place. You used to be so sweet. Now you're a firecracker on a crowded street. Couldn't look away even if I wanted. I try to walk away, but I come back to the start. Led me to the floor even though I'm not a dancer. Ask me all the questions that your parents wouldn't answer. How could you deny a diamond in the rough? You let me in your world until you had enough. You knew that I wanted you to bend the rules. How did I believe I had a hold on you? You were always stronger than people who suspected. Underestimated and overprotected. When I went away, it was the only option. Couldn't trust myself to proceed with caution. The most that I could give to you I could offer was to miss your calls. Being back here makes me hot in the face. Hot blood and a pulse in veins. Heavy memories weighing on my brain. Hot and heavy in the basement of your parents' place. You used to be so sweet. Now you're a firecracker on a crowded street. Couldn't look away even if I wanted. I try to walk away, but I come back to the start. Happens over and over and over and over again. Over and over and over and over again. She was over it, over it, over it, over it. A hidden gem, my own gold mine. You had the wild eyes. You were a secret to yourself. You couldn't keep from anyone else. Now you're the biggest, brightest flame. You are the fire that can't be tamed. You're better than ever, but I knew you when. It's bittersweet to see you again. Thanks. So now I'm going to analyze it. This is the English stuff. This is the English major stuff. So this is how I graduate. All right. So Lucy Dacus is a singer and songwriter, and one of the things I like most about her music, as I said, is the imagery. It's the moments that she puts us in. She grew up very religious in a conservative Christian home, and as a kid, that her faith meant a lot to her. But then growing up, especially as she was coming into her queerness and starting to just think more about like her own beliefs, she started to move away from the church. And this comes up a lot in her music, which are all things that I resonate a lot with. So this song is about her confronting her old self. She is going back home, and she's reminded of her old self. In an interview, she said, I know the teen version of me wouldn't approve of me now, and that's embarrassing and a little heartbreaking. Even if I know intellectually that I like my life and who I am. And I think this is a tension that maybe we can all relate to, looking back and seeing this old version of ourselves and thinking, would they like who I am now? Would they like approve of that? And we see that in the line, hot in the face. That's like the embarrassment that she might feel now, thinking about that interaction if she had that interaction. And she's thinking about these heavy memories, that line there, weighing on her brain in this moment as she's sort of torn, sort of conflicted. So I mentioned symbols, and I wanted to get you thinking about that because she uses some really good symbols in this. She uses the symbol of treasure with lines like diamond in the rough, a hidden gem, my own gold mine, and also the symbol of fire with lines like firecracker, biggest, brightest flame, and the fire that can't be tamed. And both of these things are things that start off small or are hidden, and they take digging to find that treasure. And the more you dig, the more you find, and it's beautiful, but it takes work. And fire is something that starts off small, and you have to give it air, and you have to work it, but then it gets big, and it can be dangerous, but it's also powerful and even mesmerizing. And so the past version of herself is coming into contact with the present version, and there's this huge contrast, and we see that with the line, which I lost. You used to be so sweet, now you're a firecracker in a crowded street. And like, think about that, a firecracker in a crowded street. Just like the imagery is so rich in this. So she's comparing herself to the you that she's talking about. And when she says you, she's always talking in past tense about the you. You were this, you were that, until right at the end when she says, you are better than ever. And we see a sort of like self-acceptance in that moment of the present. You are better than ever, and I accept you. It is bittersweet at the end. It's bittersweet to see you again, she says. So we feel that tension so strongly, and I think the way she does this so well because she's rooting us in these moments. And with any identity that we hold, we'll continue to confront those identities because they meant something to us at some point, even if they don't mean so much to you now. And she says in the refrain that it happens over and over and over again, and she wishes she was over it, but it's still going to happen again and again, and that's just part of life. It's a beautiful tension. So the next poem is by Mary Oliver. By raise of hands, does anyone know Mary Oliver? So, a handful of people. No pun intended. Mary Oliver is a queer American poet born in 1935. She passed away recently in 2019. Her work has inspired me since high school, so a lot of my poetry maybe feels Mary Oliver-esque. It probably does. But she does a lot of nature poetry, and she'll write about the things she sees, and she draws lessons out of the environment and the earth. And you'll see that in this poem. And I think we get a look into Mary Oliver's identity with this poem, Starlings in Winter. Chunky and noisy, but with stars in their black feathers, they spring from the telephone wire, and instantly they are acrobats in the freezing wind. And now, in the theater of air, they swing over buildings, dipping and rising. They float like one stippled star that opens, becomes for a moment fragmented, then closes again. You watch and you try, but you simply can't imagine how they do it, with no articulated instruction, no pause, only the silent confirmation that they are this notable thing, this wheel of many parts that can rise and spin over and over again, full of gorgeous life. Ah, world, what lessons you prepare for us, even in the leafless winter, even in the ashy city. I am thinking now of grief and of getting past it. I feel my boots trying to leave the earth. I feel my heart pumping hard. I want to think again of dangerous and noble things. I want to be light and frolicsome. I want to be improbable beautiful and afraid of nothing, as though I had wings. So in this poem, the thing that she uses, the tool, shall we say, that she uses to create this beautiful painting is contrast and juxtaposition. She puts these two ideas next to each other, and the contrast, the real juxtaposition is this like light bird and then this like heavy-hearted human who's just hoping to be like that bird. And in the beginning, you notice she says chunky and noisy. That's the first word she used. Really odd choice, right? Chunky and noisy. What an interesting way to start a poem about birds. And then she says, but with stars in their black feathers. We have these heavy, loud words followed by stars, feathers, and we think light, we think air. And so these two ideas are already contrasting with each other. And then she describes the birds and the awe that she has about them, and then she brings it to herself, which is to say she brings it to us. And she says, I'm thinking now of grief and of getting past it. And we resonate so deeply with that feeling, that longing to be free of like our humanness and our emotions that weigh us down. And she builds with this repetition, this noun-verb repetition. I am, I feel, I want. And it just like crescendos to this moment where she says, as though I had wings, and you think for a minute, it should be followed with a clarifying phrase, like, but I'm a human, alas. But she doesn't do that because she doesn't have to, because even though, yes, she's giving us these images of boots with a heavy human, a heart. She can feel her heart heavy with grief, and she wants to be like this bird, free. And then we remember that the bird is also chunky and noisy, and it also flies like an acrobat. And we are humans that are heavy and loud and clunky and full of grief and pain and all this heaviness, but also we can lean into who we are and be as free as the birds. So read Mary Oliver. That's my pitch. The last poem that I'll analyze is a spoken word by Patrick Roche. Spoken word, I did one earlier, it was the she-her revised one. It's, as it implies, a style that involves speaking. It's supposed to be heard. So I'm gonna play, or I should say Joey's gonna play the original recording of this poem. It's called 21. And as you listen, I want you to notice, again, like the way he uses moments and also the way he uses time, because he's gonna rewind. And as he says, he literally says in it, and you'll hear it, rewinding VHS tapes, old home videos. He starts at 21 and he's gonna go backward in time, talking about his relationship to his father. Yeah, we'll talk about it after we listen to it.
21. My father is run over by a car. He's passed out in the road with a blood alcohol content 4 times the legal limit. I do not cry. 4 months later, the nurses lose his pulse, and I wonder whose life flashed before his eyes. Rewinding VHS tapes, old home videos. 20. 19, I haven't brought a friend home in 4 years. 18, my mother sips the word divorce. Her mouth curls at the taste like it burns going down. 17, I start doing homework at Starbucks. I have more meaningful conversations with the barista than with my family. 16, I wait for Christmas Eve. My brother and I usually exchange gifts to one another early. This year, he and my father exchange blows. My mother doesn't go to Mass. 15, I come up with the theory that my father started drinking again because maybe he found out I'm gay. Like, if he could make everything else blurry, maybe somehow I'd look straight. 15. My mother cleans up his vomit in the middle of the night and cooks breakfast in the morning like she hasn't lost her appetite. 15. I blame myself. 15. My brother blames everyone else. 15. My mother blames the dog. 15. Super Bowl Sunday, my father bursts through the door like an avalanche, picking up speed and debris as he falls. Banisters, coffee tables, picture frames, tumbling, stumbling. I find his AA chip on the kitchen counter. 14. My father's been sober for 10, maybe 11 years. I just know we don't even think about it anymore. 13. 12. 11, Mom tells me Daddy's meetings are for AA. She asks if I know what that means. I don't. I nod anyway. 10. My parents never drink wine at family gatherings. All my other aunts and uncles do. I get distracted by the TV and forget to ask why. 9. 8. 7. 6. I want to be Spider-Man. Or my dad. They're kind of the same. 5. 4. 3. I have a nightmare. The recurring one about Ursula from The Little Mermaid. So I get up. I waddle toward Mommy and Daddy's room, blankie in hand. I pause. Daddy's standing in his underwear, silhouetted by a refrigerator light. He raises a bottle to his lips. 2. 1. 0. When my mother was pregnant with me, I wonder if she hoped, as so many mothers do, that her baby boy would grow up to be just like his father.
Such a good poem. Yeah, so this poem is super interesting because he plays with time. He starts at the end of his father's life, which is the beginning of the poem, and also he's 21, so it's the beginning of his possible legal relationship with alcohol, and also the point where he will have to decide if he will become like his father. So the beginning is the end, is the beginning. And then he moves back in time, flipping through these images, these moments, these concrete experiences, like suspended in time. And he invites us into those moments by keeping it in the present tense. And then you'll notice even as he goes that his language becomes like more childlike as he goes back in time. He starts by referring to his parents as father and mother, and then mom and dad, and then daddy and mommy as he gets younger. Each moment is short, and he uses really strong active verbs. I love a good verb. The more verbs you can put in a poem, the better. It just feels like it's moving, you know? So he, like, when his dad comes in and it's Super Bowl Sunday, you think of Super Bowl. This is also where he uses like some it's a pretty ironic, right? Super Bowl, it should be like a family gathering, like for like good times, and his dad comes in drunk and just like destroys everything, and he uses the words tumbling, stumbling, and you can just feel that rhythm, that movement in that moment where everything is falling apart. Yeah. And then after that, he goes even further into time, and he goes back into this like child like innocence and naivety. He doesn't even know really what AA means. He doesn't know what any of this means. He's just this innocent kid, and it's, for us, we experience like the dramatic irony of like we know what's gonna happen, and it's sad. It's really sad to think about, because we know we still have that image of my father is run over by a car as the first line of the poem. And then he leaves us with a question, a wonder. It's left unresolved. It's left at the beginning, which is the end, which is the beginning. And we don't know if he will become like his father. And that relationship, that identity, he doesn't want to be like his father, but his identity is always going to be wrapped up in that experience. So those are some cool things that he uses, some tools to put that paint up on the canvas. Yeah. So I want to give you a little bit of time to start a poem. We're going to put it all together now. We've talked about identity and moments or images, symbols that you connect with those identities. I've shown you some different styles and tools that you could possibly use. And now it's your turn, if you'd like, to write. There are 3 prompts on the last 3, or almost the last 3 pages. And I want you to just pick one and start with a moment, and then just go from there. Don't worry about stanzas and all that, just write. Whatever feels right to you. So I'll read the prompts out for us. The first one is, describe a moment, real or conceived, in which you are most yourself. The next one is, what is your relationship to an identity throughout time? Past, present, future. And then think of a moment that an identity you held hurt someone. Describe the moment. How did it affect you then, and how does it affect you now, looking back? So if one of those sort of stands out to you, I invite you to use the next seven minutes. I'm gonna give you a solid chunk of time, since I have a captive audience, ha ha ha. And then I'll end with one more poem that means a lot to me, and a song that I wrote. So I'm trying to keep you here with the promise of an original song. Yeah. So, in 7 minutes, it will be, wait, I can't do math. It's 8:47 right now. What? Just in 7 minutes, whenever that is. I'll let you know, I'll bring you back. All right. I'm going to pause what you're working on. Wrap it up, or you can continue it later. And we'll move into the last portion of this, the last few minutes. I'm going to share one more poem and the song that it turned into. If you read The Lantern, you may have read this poem before. But it is about an identity that I have fought against, wrestled with, begrudgingly accepted, and have come to love over the years, especially at my time at Houghton. And that is my queerness. So this is a poem that I wrote somewhere in the process of that self-acceptance, and it's about a moment that happened when I was 15. I wrote in my journal, I think I might be gay, and then it scared me, and I burned it out of my journal and tried to forget about it for years. It's a pretty great moment. So yeah, I want to share it with you because it's been a big part of my journey over the last few years. And even though I don't necessarily identify as the girl in the mirror anymore, particularly, everything here still applies. So it's called Girl in the Mirror. I burned you out of my journal when I was 15. I acknowledged you with written word, then set fire to your name. I did not want you, did not ask for you, and I thought I could cure you with flame, thought I'd never have to hear your name again, and again you came back until I could no longer deny that you can't split atoms without extreme impact. You can't burn a part of yourself away, it doesn't work that way, and I'm starting to accept that you're here to stay. I broke it. Girl with a shaved head. Hey you. Girl with a jean jacket. And that smile on your face. Hey you. I thought I burned you out of my journal when I was 15. Acknowledged you with written word, then set fire to your name. Hey you. God I found you, girl in the mirror. Thank God you found me, girl in the mirror. Hey, you're here to stay. Thank you guys. Thanks for being here. I appreciate every one of you for being here. Thank you to Professor Lipscomb for running our class. To Mary and Justice for, we're almost through. And thank you to all my professors that have like really impacted my life, and the friends and family who have journeyed with me on the way. Yeah, and that's all I have for you. Feel free to keep the copies and like continue to work on them. And if you want to share them with me at any point, I'd love to hear what you wrote. I really would.